Clay, I have to ask you about Deion Sanders. I mean, it's one of the biggest stories in college football this year, and it also has dwindled very quickly when he got his
Yeah.
butt handed to him by the University of Oregon. So, what do you think is the status for Deion Sanders? I mean, they were all flashy, flashing watches and talking, "We ready and we about that life," and now they looking like a flat tire. What's your thoughts on
Yeah,
Deion? Do you think he's going to recover?
for people who don't know, they started off 3-0, then 4-1, I think, and then lost the final 7 games of the season. Finished in last place in the final year of the Pac-12, 1-8 overall. I like Dion. I think he's old school, and I think that has some appeal. Here's the challenge: Colorado's not a rich football program. In an NIL era, you are having to convince kids that they should come to your program for one of two real reasons. One, I'm going to get you paid now, which I think anybody out there who works for a living can respect, can understand. All right, I'm going to get you paid now. That works. Two, the other one is I'm going to get you paid in a couple of years. All right. And I'm going to get you paid now requires rich boosters who have a lot of money to spend that want to deliver wins to their school by bringing in as good of players as they can. Again, Colorado doesn't have that, right? There are lots of schools that do have super rich billionaire boosters who will do whatever it takes. Colorado is not one of them, so they're at a disadvantage there. Two, right now, Dion does not seem to be selling the I'm building a program and in 3 or 4 years, we're going to be able to compete for championships. He seems to be trying to sell the microwavable, we're going to be good and we're going to be good immediately. That means you have to have the money and you have to get kids to come to you through the transfer portal. So, what I do not understand right now is how many of those kids are going to be willing to transfer. Maybe there's a lot of juniors and seniors out there that see Dion as their best pathway to life of good pay in the NFL. They think he's going to develop them, get them attention, get them into the league. So far, I haven't seen that. And so I think Dion's got to figure out at Colorado sort of what is their game plan, because everybody has to have a game plan in this NIL era. And I'm a capitalist. I want everybody getting as much money as they possibly can. I want everybody to be as rich as LeBron is. But you got to, at some point, figure out what your sales pitch is. And so far, other than, hey, I'm prime, I'm going to get you a lot of attention by saying a lot of cool things and being an entertaining leader, I haven't seen anything to suggest that Dion is going to deliver far better circumstances to these guys, which is ultimately what works. One caveat, and I bet you would agree with this. I think we're somewhat at a similar age. I do think Dion plays well in the recruiting living room if he were willing to put in the time with dad, with grandma, with mom, with the uncles, with the aunts, with that entire community. Everybody knows Dion, and they know what a good dude he is. And what's unique about Dion, despite grandpas out there, think this generation needs a kick in the butt more than a lot of others have been, because they live in this sort of artificial world where everything's great. And I think about this now as a dad myself. Every now and then you need a coach who just tells you you stink and is willing to really let you have it. And I think old school mom, dad, grandma, grandpa really have that desire. And I think if he actually committed to the recruiting game, Dion would be really good at it.
Yeah, no. If Dion came to my house, and when I was coming out of college, out of high school, I was an All-American football player. I played in U.S. Army All-American, and if Dion would
Yeah.
have came to my house, he'd had me sold, because he's a player's coach, and
Yeah.
he's Deion Sanders. It's just
That's right.
epic even playing for him.
And
But
you're
I
willing
agree
to
with a lot of
listen
what
to
you
him
said.
in a
Yeah,
way because he's done it than you might not be to other people, right? So when he kicks you in the butt,
yeah,
you're like, all right, I didn't want to get kicked in the butt, but it is Dion kicking me in the butt. Like, maybe I need to listen
yeah.
to him a little bit more. He's maybe the best
He's
who's ever done it in his position.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, what are you going to
Yeah.
argue with a Hall of Famer? I mean, it'll be ignorant for you to do that. I want to talk about a few other things. And on the radio, we have limited time, and you know how it works.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I want to talk about women I've seen a couple games and a couple sporting events where they had women playing with men. They had the girl in Colorado years ago who kicked field goals. What is your thought on them trying to introduce women into, I would argue, a male sport? I mean, not we ain't talking about the transgender thing yet, but
Yeah.
what is your thoughts? Because I really think that they believe that they want to get a woman onto a college football team, preferably a D1 team, and tout women up as if they can play competitively against men in D1 football.
If she could do it, I'm all for it. I don't think any women can do it. Right. And I mean, there's a difference between somebody jogging on the field to kick an extra point and somebody lining up and actually getting hit play in, play out. Right. So I think you're right. There is a desire to be of the opinion that a woman could play in major college football, that there's not. This is what this really boils down to. There is a desire in certain segments of American society to argue that men and women really aren't that much biologically different, and that all we're doing is creating a false construct by saying, oh, this is football, only men can do it. I don't think any woman can do it. I believe in the meritocracy. Look, if Ray Lewis suddenly turns into a chick with pigtails and can just flatten people, more power to her. I don't think that person is ever going to exist, and I think you're selling an artificial bill of goods at the idea. Here's what I would say: if it were going to happen, it ain't going to happen in football, right? Other than kicker, I could see maybe somewhere down the line where there is, for instance, a pitcher. We've already seen it with Danica Patrick in the NASCAR racing, stuff like that. The more you have to move and the more physical what you do is, the more your biological gender construct determines what you can and can't do. Nothing against a woman. It's just I've never seen a woman who can run a 4.4, and that's because there's never been one.
Yeah. And I don't think there ever will be one. We were just watching. I was watching a TikTok real quick, and we were running out of time. It's the last minute of the segment, but I was watching a video on TikTok of, God dang it, now I forgot the girl's name. But the fastest woman in American history in the 100-meter dash. I forget her name.
Jackie Joyner-Kersee.
But she ran. Jackie Joyner. Okay, so she ran a 10.4, I believe, or something like that, and she ranked like 7,000. When it comes to the male racers. Yeah. I mean, she's 7,000, and she's the fastest woman by far ever to run a 100-meter dash. And I got 30 seconds left. What are you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say every state champion Texas high school sprinter in the most recent year was faster than the fastest woman that had ever lived. So, I mean, that puts it in perspective. We're not talking about grown men who spent their entire life training to be as fast as possible. We're talking about Texas high school boys. Every single one of them faster than the fastest woman who's ever lived.